Dear students, viewers and the subscribers, welcome to the IAS Mentor. This will be our lecture number 79 in the series Indian Polity. As I have stated many times, the larger objective of this particular series is to provide a comprehensive idea on the topic or on the subject Indian Polity, which will be extremely useful to the students preparing for UPSC IAS examination as well as other competitive examination. In today's lecture, we will move to a new topic, that is the types of bills. We are not only going to discuss the types of bills, we are also going to understand in general the law making process in the parliament. How a bill is introduced in the parliament and what are the stages it undergoes before a bill becomes an act. Now, you may have a very basic idea. A bill is a legislative proposal. A bill, after it goes through a series of process, and then after it is passed by both houses of the parliament, and when the president gives the assent, then it becomes an act. Only an act can be enforced in a court of law. Only for an act there is a legal obligation for the people to follow it, not for a bill. A bill is merely a legislative proposal. So therefore, one of the important function that you have to remember under the constitution to the parliament is to enact the law. And to enact the law, first they have to introduce what is called as a bill. So that is the objective of this particular lecture, where we are going to understand first of all what is a bill, and then not only understand what is a bill, we are also going to understand the different types of bills under the constitution. And once we understand the different types of bills, then we will also try to understand as to what is the procedure to enact the different types of bills. Because as per the Constitution of India, the procedure to get it enacted in the parliament is different for different types of bills. So what is the procedure for a constitution amendment bill is different from an ordinary bill. What is the procedure for an ordinary bill is different from a financial bill. And within the financial bill, the procedures are different between the financial bill type 1 and the money bill. So for that particular matter, we will not only understand the different types of bills, we will also try to understand the procedure. And once the bill is enacted in both the houses of the parliament as per the procedure in the constitution, then the president has to give the assent, because without the president giving the assent, the bill is not going to become an act. So therefore, we will also understand as to what are the various options in the hands of the president when a bill is presented to the president. So these are the various things that you are going to discuss in today's lecture. I would say very, very important lecture, this lecture, next lecture, and probably the third lecture also from this particular lecture. So where I am going to discuss about the bills, the procedure, the different types of bills. Definitely you can expect one question in the UPSC preliminary examination and also in any of the competitive examination. I don't think there will be a question paper without the bills. So please pay clear attention, and in case any questions you can always reach out to me. So the first thing that you have to understand is what is a bill. As I already said, what is a bill? A bill is a legislative proposal. A legislative proposal is usually introduced by a member of parliament. So only a member of parliament can introduce this proposal. So normally it is a legislative proposal, and once it follows a number of process and then it becomes an act after the president gives the assent, then it can be enforced in a court of law. Then it creates a legal obligation for the citizens to follow all those things. Otherwise, till the time it is a bill, it is merely a proposal which has to go through a series of stages, which you are going to understand depending upon what type of bill it is. So therefore, we shall also understand the constitution provides for different types of bills. So what are the different types of bills? So first and foremost bill that I will put across is what is called as a financial bill. So there are certain types of bills which are called as financial bills. And then apart from financial bills, there is also what is called as constitutional amendment bill. Constitutional amendment bill. And there is also something which is called as an ordinary bill. So broadly, I would classify the bills into what? A financial bill, a constitutional amendment bill, and what is called as an ordinary bill. So these are the broader classifications of the bills. So how I am classifying this is depending upon the subject matter. So depending upon the subject matter, I am classifying the bills into three types. Subject matter means what the bill actually deals with. Say for example, today I am teaching Indian Polity. Indian Polity is a series that I am doing. Probably in the future I may teach ethics also. So therefore you try to understand that the subject matter of Indian Polity is little different from the subject matter of ethics. So depending upon the subject matter means what we actually deal with. So depending upon the subject matters, the bills can be classified into what is called as a financial bill, a constitutional amendment bill, and what is called as an ordinary bill. So you'll have to understand that the bills, depending upon subject matter, how they are classified: financial bills, constitutional amendment bill, and also what is called as an ordinary bill. So what is a financial bill? A financial bill deals with the finances of the government. So that is basically what is called as a financial bill. I'm repeating it again. A financial bill deals with what is called as the financial matters of the government. So therefore it is what is called as a financial bill. And if you see the financial bills are further classified into different types. What are the ways the financial bills are classified? A financial bill is further classified into what is called as a money bill. And apart from money bill, it is also classified into what is called as a financial bill type 1. And it is also classified into what is called as a financial bill type 2. So basically all the types of bills is commonly what is called as a financial bill. But within a financial bill, there are 3 different types of bills: money bill, financial bill type 1, and financial bill type 2. So right now we don't have to worry about it. In the next lecture, I'll talk about the differences of what is a money bill, how is a money bill different from financial bill type 1, how a financial bill type 2 is different from a type 1 financial bill and a money bill. We'll try to understand that in the next class. But however, what is common between all the 3 types of bills? They all deal with the financial matters of the government, be it the expenditure or the revenue. But however, each and every type of bill might deal with different types of finances. That's a different thing. But in general, they deal with what is called as finances. So therefore, it is called as a financial bill. And then the next type of bill is what is called as a constitutional amendment bill. What is a constitutional amendment bill? A constitutional amendment bill is something which is trying to amend the constitution. What is the subject matter of this bill? The subject matter of this bill is to amend the constitution. And only the bills amending the constitution is what is called as a constitutional amendment bill. Can any student put it in the comment box if you know the answer? From the commencement of the constitution, that is from 26 January 1950 till this point of time, how many constitutional amendment has been carried out? So I am recording this lecture in March 2025. So till March 2025, can anyone tell me how many amendments has been made to the constitution? Please put your answers in the comment box. And then the third type of bill is what is called as an ordinary bill. So what is an ordinary bill? If a bill is not a financial bill, if a bill is not a constitutional amendment bill, then the other types of bills are what is called as an ordinary bill. Or to put it another way, if a bill is not a money bill, a bill is not a financial bill type 1, it is not a financial bill type 2 or a constitutional amendment bill, then all the other types of bills are what is called as an ordinary bill. So therefore, we'll try to understand as to what is the subject matter of an ordinary bill as we'll proceed. Or to put it another way, that if the subject matter of a bill does not deal or come under a financial bill or a constitutional amendment bill, then automatically it is what is called as an ordinary bill. So therefore, depending upon the subject matter of the bills can be classified into these types. But however, the bills can also be classified depending upon who is introducing the bill. So who is introducing the bill means somebody has to introduce the bills in the houses of the parliament. So depending upon who is introducing the bill or the introduction of the bills can be classified into 2 types, which is called as a private member bill, or it is also called as a government bill. So here we don't have to worry about what is the subject matter of the bill. So here we'll have to just understand who is introducing this particular bill, whether the bill is introduced by a minister or the bill is introduced by a private member in the parliament. A private member is someone who is a member of parliament but not a minister. And anyone who is a minister but a member of parliament is, if he is introducing a bill, then that becomes a government bill. So these 2 things are mutually exclusive. Any minister who is member of parliament introducing a bill, then it becomes a government bill. Any member of parliament who is not a minister, if he or she is introducing a bill, then it becomes a private member bill. So therefore, we are not concerned about the subject matter of the bill. We are only concerned about who is introducing the bill. So if a minister introduces, it becomes a government bill, whatever may be the type of bill, depending upon the subject matter. If a private member introduces a bill, then it becomes a private member bill. So try to understand that these are the basic understanding you should have before we try to understand as to how a bill goes through different stages in the houses and then it becomes an act. So now what you are going to understand is the procedure as to how a bill becomes an act. I'll discuss about the subject matter of all these bills at a later stage. But first we'll have to understand as to what is the procedure for an ordinary bill, how a bill is introduced in the houses of the parliament, and then what are the various subsequent stages it undergoes, and then finally the bill becomes an act. So the first thing that I am going to understand is the procedure that we are going to understand is the procedure for an ordinary bill. So what is the procedure for an ordinary bill is what we are going to understand. What would be the procedure for an ordinary bill? Then we'll try to understand about the procedure for the other types of bills. So the first thing that we are going to understand is the procedure for an ordinary bill. What is the procedure for an ordinary bill? The first and foremost thing as per the constitution is the first step is introduction of the bill. So introduction of this bill means this is the first stage, and then after the introduction of the bill it goes to the DRSC. So first I will discuss it at a broader level, then I will discuss each and every point in a much broader detail. So try to understand that first stage is the introduction of the bill. The bill has to be introduced. This is a stage where the major objectives and the reasons will be discussed, and then the bill goes through what is called as the referral to DRSCs, that is it is going to be discussed by the department related standing committees. Then it goes for what is called as second reading, and then it goes for what is called as third reading. Third reading in the first house, if it is over, then that means that will be passed by the first house. After the third reading or in the stage of third reading, the bill will be put to vote in the first house wherever it is introduced. And when it is put to vote in the first house, if the bill is passed, then the bill will go to what is called as a second house. And in the second house, again it goes through all the process. The first reading stage, second reading stage, third reading stage, and in the third reading stage it will be put to vote. And if the bill is passed, then it finally goes to the president for his assent. So the last stage is the bill goes to the president for his assent. And if the president gives the approval, then the bill becomes an act. This is a broader outline that I am giving, but we will now discuss in detail as to each and every stage what happens. Remember, I am discussing about the procedure for an ordinary bill. So what happens in case of an ordinary bill? First the bill is introduced. So this is also called as a first reading stage or the introduction stage, which means this is an ordinary bill. In case of an ordinary bill, this bill can be introduced either by a minister or by a private member. There is no restriction. A minister can also introduce, a private member can also introduce. Whoever wanted to introduce a bill, they can introduce a bill, and they can introduce in either houses of the parliament. It is not necessary it has to be introduced only in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. In any houses, either houses, they can introduce. Normally, a member will introduce a bill in which he or she is a member. And what happens at this particular stage is the larger or the major objectives and reasons of this particular bill is discussed. That means there would have been a main purpose as to why this bill has to be brought in the first place. So that purpose will be discussed at this particular stage. And remember, there is no need to take the prior recommendation of the president to introduce this particular bill. That means to introduce certain types of bills in the parliament, the member of the parliament who wanted to introduce that particular bill has to take the prior permission of the president. But in this case, there is no need to take the prior permission of the president when it comes to an ordinary bill. For example, if a money bill is to be introduced, before its introduction, a prior permission has to be taken from the president. But in this case, it is not required. So therefore, try to understand, an ordinary bill can be introduced in either houses, either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. It can be introduced either by a minister or by a private member, and there is no need for any prior recommendation. What will happen at this stage? The major objectives and reasons of this particular bill will be discussed. Now, once this is over, then the bill is referred to what is called as DRSCs. DRSCs means departmentally related standing committees. I am repeating again, departmentally related standing committees. This departmentally related standing committees, if you see in the parliament, there are 24 such departmentally related standing committees. So how many committees are there? 24, of which 16 committees are there in the Lok Sabha and 8 committees are there in the Rajya Sabha. But however, you will understand that in all the committees there are 31 members. So every DRSCs will have 31 members. Out of those 31 members, 10 members are from Rajya Sabha and 21 members are from Lok Sabha. That means every house will have members from both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. So I'll discuss about this particular committee in detail when I take up the parliamentary committee. So right now our concern is not to understand completely the composition and of the DRSCs. But however, one of the important function of the department related standing committees is to scrutinize the bills that is introduced in the parliament. Why the DRSCs are used for this particular purpose? Because whenever a bill is introduced in the parliament is a very large body. So therefore, all the members coming and scrutinizing the bill is a very difficult process. Therefore, representing the larger body, a smaller committee is there in the form of DRSEs, where they will make an in-depth analysis of the various provisions in the bill, and if they find some of the provisions are not appropriate or there has to be some amendments or modifications to any of the provisions in the bill, they will make a note of all those things and submit the report back to the House, in whichever House it is introduced. Suppose, let us assume in this case, a bill is introduced in the Lok Sabha. After the first reading in the Lok Sabha or the introduction stage in the Lok Sabha, the bill will be referred to DRSEs. Suppose, let us assume this is a bill related to the Citizenship Amendment. The Citizenship Amendment Act is introduced, let us assume. So, therefore, if this bill is introduced, it will be referred to the departmentally related Standing Committee on Home Affairs. That means I told there are 24 DRSEs in the Parliament, and every DRSE is attached specifically related to a particular ministry or a department. So, therefore, if a bill is related to the Ministry of Home Affairs, citizenship is a matter related to Home Affairs. So, therefore, the bill will be referred to the DRSEs. Suppose if the bill is related to Science and Technology, there is a department related Standing Committee on Science and Technology. So, the bill will be referred to that particular committee. So, depending upon the bill, it will be referred to the appropriate committee. 31 members in the DRSEs, they will scrutinize, they will make a note and they will send the report back to the Lok Sabha. The committee is not a decision making authority. The department related Standing Committee is only a recommendatory body. The decision making authority is the House. But the report that is given by the committee will help the House in arriving at an appropriate decision. Okay, so the next stage is what? After the DRSE submit the report, then the next stage is what is called as the second reading stage. So now we go to the next stage, which is also called as the discussion stage or the second reading stage. Now, what happens in the discussion stage or the second reading stage? This is a stage based on the report that is submitted by the DRSE. Each and every clause in this particular bill is discussed. Now, what happens in the first reading stage? In the first reading stage, each and every clause that is given in the bill is not discussed. Only the major objectives and reasons were discussed. But what happens in the second reading stage? In the second reading stage, an in-depth analysis is done. Each and every provision which is there in the bill is discussed. After discussion, it is put to vote. It is in this particular stage, if at all any changes to the bill is to be made, it will be made in this particular stage. If at all any amendment is to be made to the bill, it will be made only in this particular stage. That is why this is also a stage which is called as clause by clause analysis. The clause by clause analysis of various provisions of the bill happens in this particular stage. Now, after the clause by clause analysis, not necessary, clause by clause analysis means every section will be discussed. Not necessary when there is a clause by clause analysis, this is very important, not necessary when there is a clause by clause analysis that there will be an amendment. An amendment may happen or an amendment may not happen to the bill that was introduced. But if the House thinks there is a need for an amendment, they can make an amendment. If the House thinks there is no need for an amendment, they will not make an amendment. How these amendments will happen? These amendments will normally happen based on an amendment motion that is introduced and passed with simple majority, then the amendments are likely to happen. Okay, so whatever changes that is likely to happen, that will happen only in this particular stage. Now remember this, at this stage, if the House wants, before making any changes to the bill, they want to refer the bill to further certain other committees. They can still refer to certain other committees as well. Say that, for example, they can refer the bill still to what is called as Joint Parliamentary Committee and Select Committee also, if required. It does not happen in all the cases. If required, they can refer it. What is a Joint Parliamentary Committee? A Joint Parliamentary Committee is a committee which is established to scrutinize the bill further. In this case, which will have members from both the houses again. And then Select Committee is a committee in a particular house itself, which will have a specific members from that particular house. But this is a very rare circumstances, which will again refer to JPC and Select Committee, but it can be done. Again, whatever is a recommendation that is given by these committees, be it Joint Parliamentary Committee or a Select Committee, again these are merely recommendatory in nature. And these are not binding upon the House. So committees are always recommendatory in nature. So based on the committee also, they can take up clause by clause analysis, and finally if they want to make changes, they'll make it, otherwise they'll not make the changes. After all these things are done, then the bill comes to the next stage, which is called as the final vote or the third reading stage. What happens in the final vote or the third reading stage? This is a stage then there will be no more changes in the bill. This is a stage where the bill is just put to vote. The bill is put to vote. It is finally accepted or rejected. In this stage, there can be, I am repeating it, there can be no changes in the provisions of the bill. The bill is just put to vote. The bill is accepted or it is rejected. If the bill is accepted by the House by a simple majority, then the bill will be passed on to the next House. If the bill is not accepted or if the bill is rejected, then the bill will not be sent to the second House. I am repeating it again. If the bill is accepted, the bill goes to the next House, that is the Rajya Sabha in this case, assuming that the bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha. But if the bill is rejected, then the bill does not go to the next House. The bill becomes dead there. So therefore, the bill cannot proceed once the bill is rejected. If the bill is accepted, it goes to the Rajya Sabha and it is introduced in the Rajya Sabha. Now the next stage in understanding the bill is the bill is now in the second House. Now remember I said that we are discussing about an ordinary bill. So therefore an ordinary bill can be introduced either in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. But for our own understanding, we are assuming that this bill is introduced where? This bill is introduced in the Lok Sabha. So therefore once a bill is passed in the third reading in the Lok Sabha, the next stage is the bill is introduced in what is called as Rajya Sabha, that is the bill is in the second House. When the bill is introduced in the second House, the bill has to go through the same procedure as we have seen already. So whatever you have seen, it has to go through all the process. Now the bill comes to what is called as a second House. It has to go through all the process right from the introduction stage. As the bill was introduced and there was an discussion on the major objectives and reasons in the Lok Sabha, here also the bill will be introduced. There will be discussion about the major objectives and reasons of the bill. The major objectives and reasons will be discussed in the Rajya Sabha also. That is in the introduction stage. After the introduction stage, then the bill goes to what is called as a second reading stage. Remember, after the introduction stage in the Lok Sabha, when it comes to the Rajya Sabha in the second House, that is in the Rajya Sabha, sorry, after the bill is passed by Lok Sabha, then it comes to the Rajya Sabha. In the Rajya Sabha, after the introduction stage, there is no referral to DRSCs because for both the houses, for a particular bill, there is only one DRSC. So therefore, the bill directly comes to what is called as a second reading stage. That is where the bill can take up, where the House can take up what is called as class by class analysis. So in the second reading stage, when the Rajya Sabha takes up the class by class analysis, so this is very, very important. So what happens in the Rajya Sabha? So what are the stages in the Rajya Sabha? The first stage is the introduction stage that you have understood. After the introduction stage in the Rajya Sabha, the second stage is second reading stage. So it comes to the second reading stage. The second reading stage is a stage where they can make changes to the bill. Remember, in case of a ordinary bill, both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha has got equal powers. It is not that more powers are given to Lok Sabha. They have equal powers. So therefore, it is not necessary for the Rajya Sabha to accept the bill in the same manner as it is passed by the Lok Sabha. They may accept, they may not accept also. I am not saying that in every case they will change it. But if they want to change, they can change. So therefore, what happens in the second reading stage? One thing that they can do is that they make no changes, because any changes that can be made to the bill, that can be made only in the second reading stage. So therefore, the Rajya Sabha here can make no changes. They are making no changes, or they can make changes. This has to be very clear to you. So they make no changes or they can make changes. Whatever happens in the second reading stage, whether they make changes or they make no changes, then the bill comes to what is called as a third reading stage. So the third reading stage is a stage where the bill is finally put to vote, nothing more than that. So this is the third reading stage. So here there can be two options. Either they accept or they reject. So these are the two things that can happen. So now try to understand. The bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha. After the major objectives and reasons are discussed, the bill comes to the second reading stage. In the second reading stage, if they want to make changes, they can make changes, or without changes also they can pass it to the third reading. Irrespective of whether they make changes or no changes, they can accept the bill. If they accept the bill, then it will go to the president. So now remember, irrespective of whether they make changes or no changes, it will come to the third reading stage. In the third reading stage, they can accept or they can reject it. So let us not discuss about the accepting the bill, because there are something that I have to discuss about it before it goes to the president. But let us assume that they reject it. Whether they make changes or no changes, if they reject it, means the bill will not move forward. The bill does not go to the president, irrespective of whatever they do. So therefore, what are the options in the hands of the Rajya Sabha? Suppose let us assume the bill is introduced. In the second reading stage, let us assume they make no changes. Let us assume this is option 1. They make no changes and then they also accept it. They also accept it. So when they make no changes and they also accept it, it will go to the president for his assent. So therefore, what is the first thing that can happen in the Rajya Sabha? They accept the bill. That is, Rajya Sabha accept the bill without any changes. So in this case, it will go for the president for his assent. Alright, so this is the first thing. Now let us assume the bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha, it comes to the second reading stage. It does not matter whether they make any changes or no changes, but what is done in the third reading stage is they reject it. So irrespective of whatever happens here, they reject it. So therefore, if they reject it, the bill does not go to the president. So if they reject it, then it enters into a stage of what is called as deadlock. So therefore, that is a second option that can be done by the president. If they reject the bill, then it becomes what is called as deadlock. The bill does not go to the president. Deadlock means that it cannot move to the president. Now the third option that can be done is that the bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha, it comes to the second reading stage. In the second reading stage, they are making changes. They make changes and that make changes, whatever the changes that they made, that is acceptable to the third reading stage. That is accepted in the Rajya Sabha. So therefore, what happens in this case, the bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha, there is amendment that happens to the bill in the second reading stage and the amended version of the bill is accepted. So if the amended version of bill is accepted by the Rajya Sabha, so the bill, the way the Rajya Sabha is accepted is little different from the way the bill is accepted by the Lok Sabha. So therefore, if the bill are in different version in a way they have been accepted, so after this particular case, if the amended version of the bill is accepted by the Rajya Sabha, then the bill has to be again sent back to Lok Sabha. It cannot directly go to the president because both the versions of the bill are different. So therefore, in this case, if the Rajya Sabha amends the bill and accept it, so they have to send the bill again back to the Lok Sabha, but the Lok Sabha is again free to accept or not to accept. If the Lok Sabha accepts the amendment that is done by the Rajya Sabha, then no issues, it will go to the president. But if the Lok Sabha does not accept the amendments that is made by the Rajya Sabha, then also the bill will not go to the president. Then also there is what is called as deadlock. So therefore, that will be the third option. So how the deadlock arises in this particular case? That the Rajya Sabha is passing with amendments which is not acceptable to Lok Sabha. So therefore, there is a deadlock. If they accept, it will go to the president. So therefore, there is no issue. It is similar to that of the first option. Accepting the bill and it goes to the president. And the fourth option that can happen is that the bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha, but after the bill is introduced, the bill is not taken up for the second reading stage or the third reading stage. That the bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha and after the introduction, nothing has happened to the bill for 6 months. So if 6 months have lapsed after the introduction of the bill and the bill has not moved forward, then also the bill will enter into a stage as what is called as deadlock. So these are the circumstances under which the deadlock arises in case of an ordinary bill between the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now try to understand. We assume that the bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha and then it comes to the Rajya Sabha. So therefore, the Rajya Sabha can exercise number of options. They can give the assent or they can accept to the bill in the same version as that of Lok Sabha, or they make changes to the bill which is not acceptable to the Lok Sabha, or there is a the Rajya Sabha is rejecting this particular bill, or the Rajya Sabha does not take any action for a period of 6 months. Among the 4 options, except when the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha are agreeing to the bill on the same version where it goes to the president assent, in all other cases there is a deadlock. That is, when the Rajya Sabha reject the bill, there is a deadlock. The Rajya Sabha make changes to the bill which is not acceptable to the Lok Sabha, there is a deadlock. Or the Rajya Sabha does not take any action for a period of 6 months after the introduction of the bill, then also there is a deadlock. So deadlock means technically the bill cannot move forward, but it doesn't mean that the bill is dead. Technically the bill cannot move forward to the president. So therefore, if the bill is so important and if they have to further take it up, if the bill does not move forward, technically the bill is also dead. Unless and until if the bill is so important where the president can convene a joint sitting to take up further the discussion on this particular bill. Remember, whenever there is a situation of deadlock, that means technically the bill is dead, which means technically the bill cannot move forward to the president. Unless and until the bill move forward to the president cannot give the assent. And unless and until the president gives the assent, the bill will not become an act. But however, if the government feels this bill is so important, then the Council of Ministers can advise a president to convene a joint sitting to resolve the deadlock. So what is the only ground to resolve a joint sitting is by convening a joint sitting under Article 108 of the Constitution. So who can convene a joint sitting? It is only the president who can convene a joint sitting under Article 108. And it is not a discretionary power of the president. It has to be done on the basis of aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. If the ministers advise, then the president can convene a joint sitting. What does it mean by joint sitting? Joint sitting means the member of both the houses of the parliament would be called upon to sit together and to decide on this particular bill. So who can convene a joint sitting? Only the president can convene a joint sitting on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Who can preside over this joint sitting? Once a joint sitting is convened by the president, who will preside over as the presiding officer of the joint sitting? It is a Speaker Lok Sabha. In the absence of Speaker Lok Sabha, the Deputy Speaker Lok Sabha. In the absence of both Speaker and Deputy Speaker Lok Sabha, the Deputy Chairman Rajya Sabha. So this is how the joint sitting will be presided. But however, under no circumstances, the Chairman Rajya Sabha can preside over the joint sitting. So remember, the Speaker will preside. In the absence of Speaker, the Deputy Speaker. In the absence of the Deputy Speaker, it will be presided over by the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha. So this is how the joint sitting happens and presides over and this is how the joint sitting will be presided. In the joint sitting, the bill will be put to vote. And what is the majority with which it has to be put to vote? It has to be put to vote by what is called as simple majority. Now, once it is passed with simple majority, the bill is deemed to be passed by both the houses of the parliament. Once it is deemed to be passed by both the houses of parliament, if the bill is passed by simple majority in the joint sitting, then it goes for president for the assent. But however, this provision of joint sitting has not been used many times in our constitutional history. In the entire constitutional history of India, the joint sitting has been convened only 3 times so far. So you can remember this particular fact. But however, who can convene a joint sitting? The president on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. So therefore, joint sitting is a way by which the deadlock can be resolved. And then finally, the bill goes to the president for his assent. Now, when the bill goes to the president for his assent, the president can exercise number of options under Article 110 of the Constitution. So what are the options that the president can exercise under Article 110 of the Constitution? So in fact, under Article 110 of the Constitution, the president can exercise certain options. So what are the options that the president can exercise? The president can give the assent to the bill. The president can give the assent. 2, the president can withhold the assent. The president can withhold the assent. And then 3, the president can send it for reconsideration. Send it for reconsideration to the legislature. So these are the 3 options that can be exercised by the president. Remember, in case of an ordinary bill, the president can exercise all these options. When the president withhold the assent to the bill does not become an act. When the president send it for reconsideration, if the legislature, that is the parliament, again reconsiders, sends it back to the president by simple majority, then the president gives the assent, the bill becomes an act. And if the president gives the assent, it becomes an act. Now, in case of an ordinary bill, all the 3 options can be exercised by the president. So this is the basic understanding you should have. Now, remember, we have already discussed about what are the options that the president can exercise. We already discussed these things as to what the president can do whenever a bill is presented. I am repeating it again. We have discussed in the previous lectures what the president can exercise. He can give the assent. Give the assent means the bill becomes an act. We can withhold the assent, which is also equivalent to what is called as absolute veto. Absolute veto means that the bill does not become an act. But however, try to understand that the president has to act in accordance with the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Therefore, the president cannot exercise his absolute veto whenever he wants. This absolute veto is majorly a situational discretion of the president. It is not that constitutionally he can exercise his discretion whenever he wants. And then if the president is not happy with any of the provisions of the bill, so therefore he can also make a note and send it for the reconsideration of the legislature as to why he is not happy with the provisions of the bill. But if the bill is again sent back with a simple majority to the president, then the president has to give the assent. So therefore, this is also called as a suspensive veto. So we already discussed all those things, but I am giving a brief idea about all these things again. And apart from all these things, there's no time limit for the president to give the assent. So therefore, sometimes he can also sit silently on top of that particular bill, which is also called as a packet veto, because there's no time limit within which the president has to give the assent whenever a bill is presented to him. So therefore, try to understand, whenever an ordinary bill is presented to the president can give the assent, or he can exercise what is called as absolute veto, provided such a situation arises, or he can exercise what is called as suspensive veto, that is also sending the bill for reconsideration. Sometimes he may also silently sit on top of that particular bill, exercising what is called as packet veto. All these options can be exercised. As we already discussed, the word veto is nowhere mentioned in the constitution. Article 100, sorry, it is not Article 110. So just make a small correction. It is Article 111 of the Constitution. It is Article 111 of the Constitution which gives all these power to the president. Article 110 of the Constitution is related to what is called as a definition of money bill, which I will discuss subsequently in the next class. So this is the basic understanding you should have. So today, if you see what you have covered a lot of important things. First, we try to understand as to what is a bill, what are the types of bill depending upon subject matter, and we also understood depending upon who is introducing what is a bill, what type of bills depending upon who is introducing, who is a private member, what is a government bill. And then we have understood the procedure for an ordinary bill, and in the procedure for an ordinary bill we have understood as to what are the options in the hands of the second house when it comes to an ordinary bill, under what circumstances the deadlock can arise, how the deadlock can be resolved, who can convene a joint sitting, who can preside over the joint sitting. When an ordinary bill is sent to the president, what are the options in the hands of the president? Each and every single thing that I have discussed today can be asked in the examination. All right. So with that, please come to the practice question. So we are concluding our discussion with the practice question. When a bill is referred to a joint sitting to both the houses of the parliament, it has to be passed with what? So whenever a bill is referred to a joint sitting, or a joint sitting is convened by the president, what is the majority that is required? Simple majority in both houses of the parliament separately. 3/4 of majority, 3/4 of the majority of the members present and voting, 2/3 of the majority of the members none. So try to answer this particular question. So what is the majority that I discussed in case of a joint sitting? What majority is it? Simple majority, absolute majority, effective majority in both houses separately or jointly in that particular house, as the name suggests. So it would be very clear to you if you have watched and observed my lecture very carefully. Try to put your answer in the comment box. So with that, I am coming to the conclusion of this particular topic. In the next lecture, I will deal with what is called as a financial bills, because today I have discussed about the procedure for an ordinary bill. In the next lecture, I will talk about what is a financial bill, including money bill, financial bill type 1, type 2, what is their procedure and all those things. So please do watch out for the next lecture. That is even more important than what you are discussing it today. So with that, I will end my lecture. If you like this lecture, please share it with your friends and family members. It is going to immensely benefit the students preparing for the UPSC IAS examination. They'll get the best conceptual clarity listening to this lecture. And if you have any queries, please do reach out to me. Think me as your guide, friend, mentor, whatever it is, but do reach out to me in case if you have any queries. Thank you very much for watching this particular lecture. All the best.